Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. My name is Christian Stewart. I am the founder and lead financial coach of Do Better Financial. And today I'm going to be doing a sneak peek of the webinar I am having on this Thursday. Last Thursday, we had the part one of the Reclaim Your Life from Sallie Mae online class or webinar, and we talked about paying for college. So we had a few college students in there who are trying to figure out either how they're going to pay for undergrad or how they're going to pay for grad school. Today, we're going to be having a sneak peek of part two, which is about figuring out how to pay off the loans you've accumulated. So when we have the webinar on Thursday, we're going to go through the 4 things you really need to do to get that everything under control. Hey, Moniqua, thanks for joining me today. The 4 things you need to do to get all of that under control ultimately, but right now in this sneak peek, I'm just going to talk about one of the options that you have in payoff, and it's honestly something that I didn't know a whole lot about because I didn't personally do it. Hi, Latanya, thanks for joining me today. But as I've been learning, this is a pretty interesting option for those of you who are dealing with student loan debt. So let's get right into it. Today's sneak peek is about consolidating loans. So let's start with a little bit of a definition. What is a student loan consolidation? Basically, they will take a bunch of loans, combine, and you'll take out one big loan. They'll pay off the small loans. The small loans go away, and you now have one loan. So usually people will do this for a couple of reasons. One of them is to make it so they only have one payment, right? A lot of people have, 5 or 6 different federal loans or private loans. Hey, Houston, thanks for joining me tonight. And so they'll combine them into one, which makes it easier for them to keep track of. So because they're looking for that one payment instead of having 4 or 5 little piddly payments. A lot of people also, especially if you got student loans before 2006, are looking to go from a variable rate interest rate to a fixed interest rate. That is one of the perks of doing a consolidation in particular, is that they're going to have a fixed interest rate by and large. There are some that don't, but we'll get to that in a second. Getting one payment, getting a lower or fixed interest rate, and also if you have a cosigner on a private loan, and so there's federal and private loans. If you have a cosigner on a private loan, which is more like think of it like a personal loan, like a credit card type thing, right? This is something that you need a credit score to get. Federal loans you can usually get because you're in need or just because you're enrolled in school. Hey, Stacy, thanks for joining me tonight. So if you're looking at consolidating loans, there are, like I said, 2 different kinds. There are federal consolidation loans, also known as direct consolidation loans. I'm gonna have to say that word like 13 times to make sure it sounds right. Federal and private consolidation loans, right? So here's what you need to know about the private. So they have a single fixed interest rate. What it is a weighted average of the loans you're putting into it, okay? So let me explain what that means. So if you have 4 loans, one of them is $20,000 and one of them is $2,000. The interest rate on the $2,000 one is like 4%, but the interest rate on the $20,000 one is 6%. They're going to figure out which percentage of the loan, of all your loans, belongs to the bigger one, and then they're going to average your interest rates over all of your loans. So typically when you do a federal consolidation, you're not going to lower your interest any because they do a weighted average. So it's going to end up being exactly the same. The other thing you need to know about federal loans is you can only use a federal consolidation loans to consolidate other federal loans. So for instance, like me, when I had my loans, I had a Discover loan, literally from like Discover card, right? I could not have consolidated that with the other loans that I had because those were federal, using a federal consolidation loan. As we'll see in a second. Hi, Caitlin, thanks for joining me tonight. As we'll see in a second, you can actually consolidate federal and private into one private loan, but there are pros and cons for that. So let's finish up with federal first. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. So to qualify to get a federal consolidation loan, you need to be in repayment or still in your grace period, which is usually somewhere between a month to 6 months, depending on what kind you have. It could be a little longer, and that's just a period right after you graduate before you have to start paying. So you either have to be in that period, or if you've previously defaulted, you have to make 3 consecutive monthly payments to then be considered for a consolidation loan. One of the really nice things about this one is that it's free, and you also can remain eligible for income-based repayment plans. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of those. If you haven't, join us at the webinar, dobetterfinancial.com/webinar on Thursday. I'm going to go some more into that, but today is about consolidation. So those are some of the pros of the federal loans, some of the cons of the federal loan. The term may actually end up being longer. So say for instance, you're on a payment plan that is going to have you paying this off in 20 years. When you consolidate, the 20 years might start over. So if you're, it'll lower your payment, which is good if you're struggling to make the payments, but it just means you're going to be paying them longer, which means overall you pay them more, because that's how interest works, right? One of the not so great things about, and this is something that teachers and people who work in nonprofits really need to listen to. If you are working towards loan forgiveness, something else we're going to discuss, but if you're working towards loan forgiveness, if you do a consolidation in the middle of your loan forgiveness program, it starts over. So if you're 2 years into a 5-year forgiveness program, when you consolidate, you get a new loan, right? It's a brand new loan. It's not like, oh, I've got all my 5 little loans and they just bundled them up. No. The government literally paid off your old loan and gave you one big fat new one, which means your repayment clock restarts. So if you're doing something like that, you may want to, keep that in mind. If you're trying to get a loan repayment plan, you don't want to start it. You don't want to consolidate if you're close to the end of that, okay? And this is true for any loan that's going to be eligible for forgiveness. The other thing is, like I said, they're consolidating, they're taking all of your little loans and you've now got one new loan. So you can't prioritize based on interest rate or anything like that if that was something you were trying to do. And also it's irreversible. So once you do this, you can't take them back apart. This is the end, right? They are now one loan. You have taken out a new loan. They've paid off the old ones. The old ones don't exist anymore. They're gone. Bye-bye. So here's what the difference is with private. You can combine all your types of loans, which is what I said before. So if you had, like I had a Discover loan and you had a federal loan, you can consolidate them together. Something you may or may not want to do. Here's why. Depending on the interest rate of your private loan and the interest rate, it may make sense to try to get a new loan, because these loans actually are based on your FICO score. So if your financial situation has improved and your credit score has gone up, you've been responsible and paying your loans, and this credit score is higher than when you originally took it out. Obviously, you're a college student, so the interest rate is probably pretty high. You might be able to qualify for a lower interest rate. So if by some manner you were able to qualify for an interest rate lower than what your federal interest rate is by doing it private, it might make sense to do it math-wise. Only issue is, once you consolidate a federal into a private, again, it's undoable, and you're going to lose a lot of the perks that you had with federal loans. Something else that we're going to discuss. But just to give you an idea, things like deferment and forbearance, those are readily available on federal loans, including consolidation loans. When you go private, some offer it, some don't, which is a shopping point. So if you're looking, that's something that you need to look at, not just the interest rate, but whether or not, if you get into a pickle, you get sick, you get laid off, there's a Harvey or whatever like that, whether or not they will allow you to defer or to even have income-based repayment plans. A lot of them don't have those either. So those are kind of the highs and lows of it. At the end of the day, you need to remember a couple of things. When you do federal, you can only put federal loans in it. When you do private, you can put private and federal loans in it. Both of these are not super complicated to do, but the federal is going to be literally an application on the government website, right? This is money coming from the government. When you do a private consolidation, you have to qualify. So you're going to need to have good credit. You're going to need to, or you're going to have a cosigner, right? And you want to really make sure, like I said, that the important thing here when you're doing private in particular is that you're looking at the interest rate and you're looking at your terms. This is a brand new loan. So don't go in there thinking, oh, I have the exact same grace period. I have the exact same availability of deferment and forbearance, and I have the exact same this, that, and the other. Negative. Once you consolidate these things, your old loans are gone, your old terms are gone, they're no longer available to you unless your new loan says that it is. So when it comes to consolidation, it really is about what is going to work best for you. I like to remind people that one of the things about consolidation, now you can do some forbearance with some of these, but once you consolidate, they're expecting you to pay this back. So you're not going to get to defer your loans as long as you could before they were consolidated. And if you're really worried about one payment, you can set something up where it auto pays from your account so you don't have to worry about it coming out if that's your biggest concern is having one payment. I personally don't usually suggest it unless you have an exorbitantly high interest rate on a private loan. Like I said, for federal loans, especially if you're trying to get a forgiveness program, that can really come back to bite you in the butt. So, take all this into account. We're going to discuss this more in the webinar come Thursday. It's going to be at 8 p.m. We're also going to be discussing, what you should do with your loans if you have no idea how much you owe. We're going to be talking about the other repayment options like income-based repayment, federal forgiveness programs, and forbearance and deferrals. And we're going to be talking about, paying it off. How to get to the end of this tunnel. I know a lot of people, they feel like it's never ending. There was a story about a guy who, and I told this story last week as well, who ended up with over $1 million in student loans for his dental degree, which I personally think is absolutely insane. There were a lot of bad choices he made on the front end, but there were some things he honestly could have done even after he made that mess that would have kept it from getting to the point that it's gotten now. It's very hard for me to encourage people to try to avoid paying their loans because you took them out. You owe them. Should you have been informed as to what you were doing? Yes. I wish they did a better job of educating students and parents about how loans work and what they're expected to do when they're done. And I think they're starting on that program, but we need more education. And that's actually something that I am very passionate about, and I am actually hosting an event this coming Friday as well. So Thursday is this webinar. If you would like to come to the webinar, it is free. It is dobetterfinancial.com/webinar. Again, this is probably the last time this particular set of information will be in this format will be free. It may be free in some smaller chunks or something like that, but this is a lot of information, honestly, and it's a lot of work for me. But I will be hosting an event for college-age students who are in that, transition period, who are either in college, just graduated, who are looking for ways to, start figuring out how to adult. They don't teach us this stuff in school, okay? They don't teach us about that, not in depth. They don't really help us understand exactly how much we're paying when they're talking about interest. It's just numbers on a page instead of, dollar signs in my bank account. So what I'm going to be doing is offering an Adulting 101 class. You may have seen it floating around on Facebook. My mouth's not working today. You may have seen it floating around on Facebook. It's called Adulting 101, Money Mastery for Millennials. If you're over 30 and you're still struggling with Adulting 101, do not be ashamed. This is just going to be some financial basics. We're going to be talking about how you can move out of mom and dad's, how you can learn to plan for the future that you want, and how you can get rid of Sallie Mae or avoid her. So it's going to be a little bit of what I'm talking about in the webinar, but it's going to be a lot of the basics so that I can make sure that students, at least when they're in college, can manage their money better so that when they get out, they're not struggling like a lot of us did. Can I get an amen? So if you would like to come to that event, the cost is $20, and you can go to dobetterfinancial.com/adulting. I thank you so much for joining me tonight. Again, I want to see you at the webinar, which is free on Thursday, 8 p.m. You need to sign up. If you signed up for last week's webinar, you're going to get the link for this week's webinar as well. But to sign up for the webinar is dobetterfinancial.com/webinar. If you want to sign up for the Adulting 101 Money Mastery for Millennials class, which is this Friday night at 7 p.m., you're going to go to dobetterfinancial.com/adulting. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.